Go ahead, one word. Should we hold this investment or not?
Exit. The price is rising, but the trading volume is falling. Someone is creating artificial demand.
How did you see that in 10 seconds?
Billionaire CEO forced the cleaning lady to give investment advice to humiliate her, but froze when he heard the first words. This is a story about discovering that your worth doesn't depend on your job title, your uniform, or what others think of you. Sometimes, the most underestimated person in the room is exactly who should be leading it. The billionaire CEO pointed his finger at the cleaning lady in the middle of the conference room and said with a cruel smile, "Since you understand business so well, why don't you explain to all of us what's wrong here?" 12 executives in suits worth Evelyn Carter's annual rent turned their heads in her direction. The cleaning cart squeaked. The mop dripped on the imported carpet, and Evelyn thought, with all the calm of someone about to be swallowed by the floor, "How did I end up here?" It all started 40 minutes earlier. Evelyn was pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway of the 32nd floor of the most impressive corporate building in Chicago. The building had more glass than a mirror store and more ego than a professional athlete's locker room. At 11 at night, the place was practically empty. Practically. "You know what I think, Mr. Mop?" Evelyn said, looking at the mop leaning on the cart as if it were an old friend. "I think these executives put product in their hair, but they don't put any brainpower into their decisions." The mop, as always, didn't respond, but Evelyn liked to imagine it agreed. "You're a great listener," she continued, turning the corner. "You never interrupt me, never disagree, the perfect therapist. And the best part, you don't charge $200 an hour." Evelyn was 32 years old, had a 3-year-old son named Noah, and a life that seemed to have been written by a very grumpy screenwriter. 3 years ago, she owned a small but promising financial consulting firm. She had clients, she had a future, she had a husband who swore he loved her, until she discovered that her husband loved her money more than he loved her. He emptied the accounts, forged documents, and disappeared, leaving behind a trail of debts, lawsuits, and Evelyn's soul in pieces on the kitchen floor. Since then, she did what she needed to survive, and what she needed at that moment was to clean rich people's bathrooms and pretend she didn't understand anything about what they did in there. Room 3201, she read the nameplate on the door. Office of the Chief Financial Officer. "All right, let's go, Mr. Mop." Another night, another carpet full of organic croissant crumbs. Evelyn pushed the door open. And that's when the universe decided to play a trick on her. The room wasn't 32-1, it was 3210. And it wasn't the empty office of the chief financial officer. It was the main conference room, full, packed, occupied by 12 men and 2 women in dark suits, all looking at a presentation projected on the wall with colorful graphs and huge numbers. Evelyn froze at the door, the cart still squeaking behind her. "Good evening," said one of the executives without even really looking. "The coffee ran out. Can you bring more?" Evelyn blinked, then blinked again. I'm not from the coffee service. I'm from the cleaning staff." "Ah," the man finally looked at her. "Then you can come back later. We're in the middle of an acquisition analysis." Evelyn nodded quickly and began to back away, pulling the cart, but the front wheel locked, as it always did. Mr. Mop swayed dangerously, threatening to fall. Evelyn bent down to adjust it, trying to be invisible, while the presentation continued. "As the data shows," the presenter was saying, a man with round glasses and a nasal voice, "the target company has extraordinary potential. The valuation of $800 million is conservative, considering the projected growth of 40% per year." Evelyn stopped fiddling with the wheel. 40% per year? On what planet? "The operating cash flow is solid," the presenter continued, "and the history of consistent profits." Evelyn pressed her lips together. "Don't say anything. Don't say anything. You're invisible. You're part of the furniture. You're a ghost with a mop. Confirms that this is the investment of the year." "The cash flow is manipulated," Evelyn muttered quietly enough that no one would hear, or at least that's what she thought. "Excuse me," said a deep voice from the back of the room. "What did you say?" Evelyn slowly raised her head. A tall man with perfectly groomed, dark hair and eyes that seemed to assess the value of everything they saw was standing at the head of the table. He was the type of man who entered a room and the air changed composition. The type who smiled as if he knew something you didn't. The type who probably had a private helicopter and thought that was normal. "I didn't say anything," Evelyn stammered. "Yes, you did." The man walked toward her, hands in the pockets of his impeccable suit. "You said something about cash flow. Manipulated was the word." The other executives exchanged glances. Some chuckled quietly. A woman with her hair pulled back rolled her eyes. Evelyn felt her face burn. It was a thought, out loud, by accident. "Sorry, I'm leaving now." No, the man smiled, and the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Now I'm curious. A cleaning lady who understands cash flow, that's new." "I don't understand," Evelyn said quickly. "I just clean. That's what I do. Clean, with products, and a mop. This one, actually. Mr. Mop, he's a great mop, very absorbent." She was rambling. She knew she was rambling. Mr. Mop, if he could speak, would say, "Stop talking." "Mr. Mop," the man repeated, raising an eyebrow. "It's an affectionate nickname. We're close." Silence. One of the executives coughed. Another hid his laughter behind his hand. "Interesting," the man crossed his arms. "And what else do you and Mr. Mop think about this acquisition?" Evelyn looked at the mop. The mop dripped on the carpet. "Look, sir, I really need to go." "It's a simple question," he interrupted. "You said the cash flow is manipulated. Explain." The entire room was looking at her now. 12 executives, $2 billion in combined net worth, and a cleaning lady holding a wet mop. Evelyn took a deep breath. Don't speak. You're going to lose your job. You need this job. No one needs this job. Stay quiet." But Evelyn's mouth had other plans. "The operating cash flow you're looking at includes non-recurring revenues classified as recurring," she said, almost in a whisper. "The gross margin is inflated because they capitalized expenses that should be in operations. And the 40% growth is based on projections that assume market conditions that haven't existed since 2019. Silence. A silence so deep that Evelyn could hear the air conditioning humming. "Also," she continued, because apparently her mouth had declared total independence from her brain, "the multiple you're using for the valuation is 3 standard deviations above the sector average. If that's conservative, I'm the Queen of England." More silence. The man with round glasses had his mouth open. The woman with her hair pulled back had stopped rolling her eyes and was very, very quiet. And the tall man, the CEO, the owner of the cruel smile, was looking at Evelyn as if she had just spoken in an alien language. Evelyn swallowed hard. "I said that out loud?" No one answered. Mr. Mop dripped once more on the carpet, and Evelyn knew at that exact moment that her life was about to change completely. She just didn't know if for the better or for much, much worse. The silence lasted exactly 7 seconds. Evelyn counted. Because when you're standing in the middle of a conference room holding a wet mop while 12 billionaires stare at you, counting seconds is the only thing that keeps your brain from shutting down. The CEO was the first to move. He started clapping. Slowly. Each clap echoing in the room like an elegant slap. "Impressive," he said, still clapping. "Really impressive." Evelyn felt a thread of hope. Maybe he liked it. Maybe she wasn't going to lose her job. Maybe... Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO turned to the executives with a smile that Evelyn had only seen on sharks. "It seems we have a financial consultant disguised as a cleaning lady. What a privilege for us." The laughter began, quiet at first, then louder. Evelyn's hope evaporated like water in the desert. "I really need to go," she tried again, pulling the cart. No, please," the CEO raised his hand. "Stay. I'm genuinely curious. After all, it's not every day we receive investment advice from someone who cleans bathrooms." More laughter. Evelyn felt her face burn. Mr. Mop dripped on the carpet for the 10th time, as if he were crying for her. "What's your name?" the CEO asked, crossing his arms. "Evelyn. Evelyn. Pretty name. And tell me, Evelyn," he pronounced her name as if it were a joke, "where did you learn about valuation and cash flow?" "In the cleaning products manual." The executives burst into laughter. One of them slapped the table, another wiped tears from his eyes. Evelyn gripped the mop handle so hard her knuckles turned white. "I read some things," she murmured. "Read some things," the CEO repeated, theatrically. "Fascinating. And where exactly? In the gossip magazine at the supermarket?" More laughter. The woman with her hair pulled back was practically doubling over laughing. Evelyn wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her. She wanted to go back in time 40 minutes and choose any other door in that hallway, but she couldn't go back. And the floor, unfortunately, remained very solid. You know what I think? The CEO walked toward her, hands in his pockets. I think you heard some big words, combined them with something you saw on the internet, and decided to play smart. It happens a lot. People without qualifications love giving opinions about things they don't understand. Evelyn swallowed hard. Don't respond. Don't respond. You need this job. But I'm a fair man, he continued, stopping 2 steps away from her. I'll give you a chance to explain yourself. In front of everyone, repeat what you said about the investment, word for word. I don't think that's necessary. I think it is, he smiled. Come on, you were so confident a minute ago. What happened? Did your courage leave with the disinfectant? Laughter again. Evelyn felt her eyes sting, but she refused to cry. Not in front of them. Not in front of him. I'm waiting, the CEO said, checking the wristwatch that probably cost what she made in 5 years. I have a meeting in 20 minutes, so be brief. Evelyn looked around. All the faces had the same expression. Amusement. She was the evening's entertainment. The private circus of the rich and powerful. She thought of Noah, of his smile when she came home in the early morning hours, of the way he said, with his little 3-year-old voice, that she was the strongest mommy in the world. Of the drawing he had made that morning, 2 stick-figure people holding hands, her and him. Evelyn took a deep breath. If she was going to be humiliated anyway, at least she would be humiliated while telling the truth. The valuation is inflated, she began, her voice steadier than she expected. You're using a revenue multiple of 12 times for a company that has been operating with a negative net margin for 3 consecutive quarters. The CEO's smile wavered for half a second. Evelyn continued. The projected growth of 40% assumes that the company will expand into 2 new markets simultaneously. But if you look at the balance sheet, you'll see that short-term debt equals 87% of available cash. They don't have capital for expansion. They're going to need a new round of financing in less than 6 months. The man with round glasses was frantically flipping through the documents. And the operating cash flow, Evelyn pointed to the screen, includes a non-recurring asset sale of $42 million that was classified as operating revenue. That's at best creative accounting. At worst, it's fraud. Silence. Not the embarrassed silence from before. A different silence. Heavy. Tense. The CEO was no longer smiling. Who are you? He asked, his voice losing its mocking tone. I already told you. I'm from the cleaning staff. Cleaning staff don't talk like that. Maybe you don't know many cleaning staff. One of the executives let out a surprised laugh, but quickly swallowed it when the CEO shot him a sharp look. Where did you study? He insisted. Evelyn hesitated. The answer was on the tip of her tongue. University of Chicago. MBA with honors, internship at the biggest consulting firm in the country. But saying that would be opening a door she had closed 3 years ago. A door full of pain, shame, and memories she preferred to keep locked away. Does it matter? She asked instead of answering. It does matter. Why? Because if I have a degree, my opinion is worth more, and if I don't, everything I said becomes a lie? The CEO opened his mouth to respond, but no sound came out. Evelyn seized the moment. I could be wrong, she said, surprising herself with the calm in her voice. But so could you. The difference is that I don't have $800 million to lose. You do. The silence stretched on. One of the executives had his phone calculator open, redoing the numbers. Another was whispering with the colleague beside him. The woman with her hair pulled back wasn't laughing anymore. And in the corner of the room, a man Evelyn hadn't noticed before was watching everything in silence. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't mocking. He was just observing, with eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface. The CEO finally found his voice. You know what the problem with people like you is? He said, his tone icy. You don't know your place. Evelyn felt her stomach sink. And what is my place? The CEO smiled, but it wasn't a mocking smile anymore. It was a smile of sentencing. Out of here, he said. You're fired. The word fired echoed in the room like thunder on a sunny day. 12 executives held their breath. Mr. Mop dripped on the carpet for the last time, as if he knew his time there was over. Evelyn felt the ground disappear for a second. Fired, no job, no income, Noah, the bills, the rent, the food. The CEO crossed his arms, waiting for her reaction. He probably expected tears. Please. Maybe even a pathetic apology. That's what people like him were used to receiving. Evelyn took a deep breath, and then something strange happened. An absurd calm took over her. The kind of calm that comes when you realize you've already lost everything before and survived. The kind of calm that comes when you understand that fear only has power if you let it. No, she said. The CEO blinked. What do you mean, no? No. I wasn't fired. I just fired you. I own this company. I decide who stays and who goes. You can decide a lot of things. Evelyn adjusted the mop in the cart with a tranquility that surprised even herself. But you can't fire me, because I quit first. Silence. One of the executives dropped his pen. The sound echoed in the room like a gunshot. You. What? The CEO frowned as if he didn't understand the words. I quit. Evelyn repeated, slowly, as if she were explaining to a child. 2 words. Subject, verb. I thought high-level executives knew how to interpret simple sentences. Someone in the back of the room choked. Another disguised a laugh with a very unconvincing cough. The CEO turned red. The kind of red that goes with high blood pressure and expensive lawyers. You can't quit, he said through clenched teeth. I already fired you. Technically, you said you're fired. Present tense. I said I quit before you finished processing your own sentence. So chronologically, I was faster. This is ridiculous. I agree. This whole situation is ridiculous. But here we are. The CEO took a step toward her, his jaw locked. Listen here. No, Evelyn raised her hand. You listen. I've spent the last 3 years of my life cleaning offices of people who think someone's worth is in the position they hold. I scrub floors, clean bathrooms, collect garbage. And I do it with dignity, because honest work has no shame. The room was in absolute silence. But you know what I don't do? She continued. I don't accept being treated as less than human just because I wear a cleaning uniform instead of an Italian suit. I don't accept being turned into a joke for a bunch of men who probably don't even know how to change a light bulb by themselves. The man with round glasses looked at his own suit, clearly offended. And I definitely don't accept being fired by someone who's about to lose $800 million because he has too much ego to hear the truth. The CEO opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You don't know who you're talking to. Yes, I do. I'm talking to a man who just discovered that the cleaning lady understands more about investments than his entire team. And that hurts, doesn't it? It hurts a lot. Silence. The woman, with her hair pulled back, had her mouth open. The man with the calculator had stopped calculating. And the executive who had asked for coffee at the beginning of the meeting seemed to be reconsidering all the life choices that had brought him there. Evelyn grabbed the cleaning cart. So just for the record, I wasn't fired. I chose to leave. Because working for someone who doesn't recognize value isn't worth any salary. Not even mine, which, by the way, was pitiful. She began walking toward the door. You're going to regret this, the CEO said behind her, his voice trembling with anger. Evelyn stopped, turned her head. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it with my head held high. Can you say the same? No response. Evelyn pushed the cart to the door. The front wheel locked, as always. She gave it a discreet kick. The wheel unlocked. Oh, and one last thing, she said, already at the threshold. Mr. Mop asked me to tell you it was a pleasure meeting you. He said he's cleaned up a lot of messes in his life, but he's never seen so much concentrated in one room. And she left. The hallway was empty and silent. Evelyn's footsteps echoed on the marble floor as she walked toward the elevator. Her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her ears. What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? She had just destroyed her only source of income. Noah needed food. The rent was due in 2 weeks. The electricity bill was overdue. But for the first time in 3 years, Evelyn didn't feel ashamed. She felt afraid. Yes, very afraid. But not ashamed. And that was worth something. She stopped in front of the elevator and pressed the button. The doors opened. Evelyn entered, turned around, and faced the empty hallway. Good job, Mr. Mop, she whispered to the mop. We did great in there. The mop dripped in agreement. The doors began to close, and then a hand appeared in the gap, preventing them from closing. Evelyn's eyes widened. It was the man from the corner of the room, the one who had remained silent the whole time, the one who watched without laughing, without mocking, without judging. He entered the elevator, adjusted his jacket, and pulled a card from his pocket. "Tomorrow," he said, handing the card to her. 9 in the morning. Talk to HR. Ask for me. Evelyn looked at the card, then at him, then at the card again. Is this a prank?" The man smiled. And, for the first time that night, Evelyn saw a smile that seemed genuine. "No," he said. "It's an opportunity." The elevator doors closed, and Evelyn stood there, holding a business card in one hand and a wet mop in the other, trying to understand how her life had turned upside down in less than an hour. The name on the card shone under the fluorescent light. James Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Capital. The elevator descended 32 floors, and Evelyn spent all of them staring at the business card as if it were a letter from a distant planet. James Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Capital. The golden letters gleamed under the fluorescent light, mocking the absurd situation. "Mr. Mop," she whispered, "is this real or did I hit my head somewhere?" The mop dripped. Evelyn decided to interpret it as solidarity. When the doors opened on the ground floor, she walked out on autopilot. She passed the security guard who didn't even look at her. She crossed the marble lobby she had mopped so many times. She pushed through the revolving door and felt the cold Chicago air cut across her face. It wasn't until she reached the bus stop that she realized she was still holding the mop. "Oh, for the love of," she looked at the object. "Technically, this is theft of corporate property now." The mop didn't seem worried. "You know what? You're coming with me." Consider it early retirement. The 11:47 bus arrived with its usual 15-minute delay. Evelyn got on, paid the fare, and sat in the back, the mop propped up on the seat beside her like a silent passenger. An elderly woman looked at her with curiosity. "It's a pet mop," Evelyn explained. "Very loyal, doesn't bark." The woman changed seats. The ride to the apartment took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of Evelyn looking at the card, putting it in her pocket, taking it out of her pocket, looking at it again. 40 minutes of unanswered questions. Why did he do this? What does he want? Nobody offers a job to a cleaning lady who just caused a scandal at a billionaire meeting. This doesn't make sense. This has to be a prank. Or worse, a setup. When she got home, the apartment was quiet. The babysitter from the floor below, a 60-year-old woman named Gloria, was sleeping on the couch with the TV on the cooking channel. Evelyn paid the agreed $20, thanked her quietly, and went to Noah's room. He was sleeping with his mouth open, hugging a plush dinosaur that had seen better days. His brown hair spread across the pillow, the rosy cheeks of a small child, the absolute peace of someone who has no idea his mother just lost her job. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed and brushed a strand of hair from his face. "I did something crazy today, sweetheart," she whispered. Mommy opened her mouth when she should have stayed quiet, again. Noah stirred, mumbled something about dinosaurs, but didn't wake up. "But you know what's strange? I don't regret it. For the first time in 3 years, I felt me. The real Evelyn, not the hidden version." She took the card out of her pocket and looked at it once more. "A man gave me this. Told me to show up tomorrow. 9 in the morning. Sounds crazy, right? It probably is, but..." Evelyn took a deep breath. But what if it isn't? That night, she didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, the card on one side, Mr. Mop propped against the wall on the other, like a silent counselor. "What do you think?" she asked the mop. "Do I go and find out it's all a lie, or do I not go and spend the rest of my life wondering?" The mop didn't answer, but a drop of water ran down the handle and dripped onto the floor. "You're right," Evelyn said. "I've already lost everything once. What else do I have to lose?" At 7 in the morning, she was up. By 7:30, she had woken Noah, made breakfast, and left him with Gloria again. By 8:15, she was on the bus, wearing the only dress clothes she still had. Black pants, a navy blue blouse, and shoes that desperately needed a makeover. At 8:55, she was standing in front of the Whitmore Capitol building. The building was different from the previous one, less imposing, more elegant. Glass and steel, but with plants at the entrance, a touch of humanity in the middle of the concrete. Evelyn took a deep breath. "Okay," she said to herself. "Either this is real, or I'm about to experience the biggest embarrassment of my life. Either way, at least I'll know." She went in. The receptionist was a young woman with a friendly smile and hair pulled back in a perfect bun. Good morning. Can I help you? I'm looking for HR. James Whitmore asked me to come. The receptionist checked the computer. Evelyn Carter? Evelyn blinked. Yes. How did you? Mr. Whitmore let us know you'd be coming. 12th floor, third door on the left. They might be expecting you. They might be expecting, as if it were something planned, as if it were real. The elevator rose in silence. Evelyn counted the floors. When the doors opened on the 12th floor, she saw a well-lit hallway, light-colored walls, and a sign that said Human Resources. A middle-aged woman greeted her with a professional smile. Miss Carter? I'm Margaret, HR manager. Mr. Whitmore spoke very highly of you. He did? He said you have an exceptional eye for financial analysis and that you're not afraid to speak the truth. Evelyn didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said that? In those exact words, Margaret indicated a chair. Let's talk about the junior analyst position, if you're interested, of course. Junior analyst. A fresh start. A real chance. Evelyn sat down. I'm interested, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. Very interested. 2 hours later, she left the building with a signed contract, a start date, and the strange feeling that the universe had decided, for the first time in a long while, to play in her favor. That night, at home, she put Mr. Mop in the laundry room closet. You were a great partner, she said. But I think this phase is over. The mop remained silent. Evelyn closed the closet door and smiled. The next day, Evelyn Carter discovered she had traded Mr. Mop for a calculator with a superiority complex. The calculator sat on her desk, next to a pad of yellow Post-it notes, and had already heard more confessions in 1 week than any licensed therapist. Lady Calculator, Evelyn whispered, pretending to check numbers on the screen. It's been 5 days since I started here, and nobody has found out. Is that good, or does it just mean the catastrophe is preparing itself better? The calculator displayed the number 0. Evelyn decided to interpret it as optimism. The Whitmore Capital office was everything Evelyn didn't expect from an investment firm. People said, "Good morning," and seemed sincere. Nobody looked at her as if she were part of the furniture, and the coffee in the break room was surprisingly drinkable. But Evelyn couldn't relax. Every time someone approached her desk, her heart raced. Every question about her past was a landmine. Every lingering look seemed like a silent accusation. Evelyn? Pat appeared out of nowhere, her huge glasses reflecting the fluorescent light. Lunch? Evelyn almost knocked over the calculator. You scared me, Pat. Sorry, it's just that you get so focused you look like you're diffusing one of those dangerous things from action movies. You know those with the colored wires? I was just checking numbers. For 20 minutes? Without blinking? Pat tilted her head. You're weird. I like you. Evelyn smiled, genuinely. Thank you, I think. The cafeteria was on the 8th floor and had a beautiful view of the city. Evelyn grabbed a salad and sat with Pat at a table in the corner, away from the main traffic. So, Pat stabbed a piece of chicken. Where did you come from again? Evelyn swallowed hard. Consulting. Small firm. Nothing interesting. And why did you leave? Personal matters. What kind of personal matters? The personal kind. Pat narrowed her eyes. You're very mysterious, you know that? Like those movie characters who seem normal but then reveal they're Russian spies. I'm not a Russian spy. That's exactly what a Russian spy would say. Evelyn laughed, but the laugh died when she saw James Whitmore entering the cafeteria. He waved from a distance, grabbed a coffee, and left without stopping to chat. Wow, Pat observed. The boss waved at you. He waves at everyone. No, he doesn't wave. He does that thing with his head, like a minimal movement that could be a greeting or could be a nervous twitch. Actually waving? I've only seen him do that for his mother once. And mind you, the woman is the majority shareholder. Evelyn pretended sudden interest in her salad. He must have confused me with someone else. Sure. Pat smiled in a way that clearly said, I don't believe you, but I'll pretend I do. Back at her desk, Evelyn found a Post-it stuck to her monitor. The handwriting was elegant, slanting to the right. Technology sector report at 3 p.m. Conference room 3. If you can contribute, you're welcome, JW. Evelyn peeled off the Post-it and put it in her pocket as if it were evidence from a case. Mr. Post-it, she whispered to the yellow pad on her desk, is this normal? Do CEOs leave little notes for junior analysts? The pad of Post-its didn't respond. but Evelyn had the distinct impression it was judging her. At 3 in the afternoon, she was in conference room 3, sitting in the corner, trying to look invisible. There were 6 people at the table, all with impressive titles and serious expressions. James conducted the meeting with efficiency. No arrogance, no showmanship, just direct questions and attentive listening. The technology sector presents opportunities, a gray-haired man was saying, but the valuations are inflated. We need to be cautious. I agree. James looked around the table. Any other observations? Silence. Evelyn felt the old impulse rising in her throat. The words wanted to come out. The numbers in the presentation were wrong. The revenue multiple didn't make sense. The growth projection ignored obvious variables. Don't speak. Don't speak. You learned this lesson. Stay quiet. Evelyn? James was looking at her. Any contribution? All eyes turned in her direction. Evelyn cleared her throat. Just a small observation. Go ahead. The growth projection assumes that customer acquisition costs will remain stable. But if we look at the sector's history over the past 3 years, these costs increased by an average of 22% per year. That completely changes the projected margin. Silence. The gray-haired man frowned and began reviewing the numbers. She's right, he said after a moment. How did we miss this? James smiled. A discreet smile, almost imperceptible. Thank you, Evelyn. Valuable observation. The meeting continued, but Evelyn could barely pay attention. Her heart was still beating fast. Her hands were still trembling slightly. She had done it again, opened her mouth, shown what she knew. And this time, nobody laughed. At the end of the workday, while packing up to leave, she found another post-it on her keyboard. Welcome to the team. For real, JW. Evelyn put the post-it together with the other one. Lady Calculator, she whispered. I think this might work out. But when she got home that night, there was a letter in the mail. No return address, no stamp, just her name written by hand. Inside, a single sheet of paper. I know who you are. I know what you're hiding, and soon, everyone will know too. Evelyn felt the ground disappear. The past had found her new address. Evelyn spent 3 days analyzing the anonymous letter as if it were a financial report. She studied the handwriting, the type of paper, even the smell of the ink. Conclusion. Someone knew her secret and had terrible taste in envelopes. Lady Calculator, she whispered at her office desk. Who do you think it was? Derek from finance? He asks a lot of questions. Or maybe that woman from HR who looked at me strangely on Tuesday. Or the intern who's always in the hallway. He seems suspicious. Anyone who smiles that much at 8 in the morning is automatically suspicious. The calculator displayed error. Evelyn agreed. Despite the internal panic, she decided not to run. She had run before. She had hidden for 3 years. And where did that get her? Having conversations with office supplies. If someone wanted to destroy her, they would have to do it face to face. Evelyn? James's voice pulled her from her thoughts. She almost knocked over the calculator. Again. Yes, present, awake, working. James raised an eyebrow. Are you okay? Perfectly. Why? Because you're holding the calculator like it's a shield. Evelyn looked at her own hands. Indeed, she was hugging the calculator against her chest. It's a gesture of affection. We're close. James blinked, then laughed. A genuine laugh that completely transformed his face. You're strange, Evelyn Carter. I've been told that several times this week. Come on, he indicated the direction of the elevator. I need a second opinion on a project, and coffee, mostly coffee. Evelyn hesitated. Now? No, next week. Of course now. Coming? She put the calculator in the drawer, whispering a discreet, wish me luck, and followed James to the elevator. The cafe on the ground floor of the building was a small, cozy place with leather sofas and the smell of roasted beans. James ordered a double espresso. Evelyn, a cappuccino that cost the equivalent of an hour of her old salary. So, James sat on one of the sofas and indicated the spot beside him, the project. Renewable energy sector. A client wants to invest heavily, but the numbers don't convince me. And you want my opinion? I want the opinion of someone who's not afraid to tell me I'm wrong. From what I've seen so far, you fit that description perfectly. Evelyn felt her face warm. I didn't say you were wrong. I just complimented the analysis. With data no one had seen. At a meeting you were invited to as a courtesy, and that ended up changing the entire strategy for the quarter. When you say it like that, it sounds more dramatic than it was. That's exactly how it was. They were silent for a moment. Evelyn sipped her cappuccino, trying to ignore how her heart had decided to speed up without permission. "Can I ask you something?" James said. "It depends." "On what?" "On the question." He smiled. "Where did you learn all this? Financial analysis, valuation, projections? You talk about these subjects like someone who was born inside a spreadsheet." Evelyn gripped her cup. "I studied. I worked in the field before." "Before what?" "Before a lot of things." James observed her for a moment. His eyes were attentive but not invasive, curious but respectful. "You don't have to tell me," he said finally. "I just wanted you to know that, whatever it is, it doesn't change what I see." "And what do you see?" "Someone competent, intelligent, brave, and who clearly has a very special relationship with calculators." Evelyn laughed, a laugh that escaped before she could hold it back. "The calculator is a great listener. I bet it is." The silence that followed was different, denser, loaded with something Evelyn didn't want to name. James leaned slightly toward her. Not much, just enough for her to notice. "Evelyn?" "The project," she said, quickly pulling back. "You were going to show me the numbers for the project. Renewable energy, the numbers." "Let's see the numbers." James stopped, pulled back as well. If there was disappointment on his face, it was too quick for Evelyn to catch. "Sure." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. The numbers. The rest of the conversation was strictly professional. Evelyn analyzed the data, pointed out inconsistencies, suggested alternative approaches. James listened, took notes, agreed on some points, and disagreed on others. It was almost as if the earlier moment hadn't happened. Almost. When they returned to the office, it was already past 7. The floor was practically empty. "Thank you for your help," James said in front of the elevator. "It's my job." "No, this went beyond the job, and I'm grateful." Evelyn nodded, not knowing what to say. The elevator doors opened. She got in. James stayed. "Evelyn," he said before the doors closed. "Yes? Whatever you're hiding, whatever you're running from, you don't have to run from me." The doors closed before she could respond. Evelyn descended the 12 floors in silence, her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her ears. She couldn't fall in love. Not now. Not with him. Not when her life was a house of cards about to collapse. But when she reached the ground floor and left the building, she could only think of one thing. His eyes when he said, "You don't have to run from me." That night, lying in bed while Noah slept in the next room, Evelyn stared at the ceiling and whispered into the darkness, "Lady Calculator, I think I'm in trouble." But the calculator was in the desk drawer at the office, and Evelyn was completely alone with her feelings. For the first time in 3 years, that scared her more than any anonymous letter. Because anonymous letters, she knew how to face. That the way her heart raced near James Whitmore? For that, there was no formula. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, 3 days after that elevator conversation that still kept Evelyn awake. James appeared at her desk with a golden envelope and a smile that made her heart do an involuntary somersault. "Investor conference," he said, placing the envelope in front of her. "Grandview Hotel, Saturday. I'm presenting our new strategic partners and I want you there." Evelyn looked at the envelope as if it were a trap. "Me? Why?" "Because you have the best eye for detecting false numbers I've ever seen, and because I trust your opinion. You've known me for less than a month. Sometimes a month is enough." He left before Evelyn could argue. She stared at the golden envelope for a long time. "Lady Calculator," she whispered, "is this good or is the universe setting up another prank?" The calculator displayed the number 8. Evelyn decided to interpret it as 8 out of 10 chances it goes wrong. On Saturday, she was in the women's restroom at the Grandview Hotel, the most luxurious place she had ever set foot in, talking to the calculator she had brought in her purse. For emotional precaution. "Okay," she said to the object, adjusting the navy blue dress she had bought with her first paycheck. "I can do this. It's just a conference. Rich people talking about money. I understand money. I speak their language. Even though 3 weeks ago I was scrubbing the floors of places like this." The calculator remained in sympathetic silence. "You're a great friend." Evelyn put the calculator in her purse. "Much better than Mr. Mop. He always dripped at the wrong moments." She took a deep breath, checked her lipstick in the mirror, and left the restroom. The conference hall was exactly what Evelyn expected. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, panoramic view of Lake Michigan. Executives in impeccable suits circulated with glasses of champagne, talking about mergers and acquisitions as if discussing the weather. Evelyn grabbed a glass from a passing waiter and took too big a sip. "Calm down," she murmured to herself. "You belong in this place. You're an analyst at Whitmore Capital. You're not the mop lady anymore." "Evelyn." James's voice cut through the chatter. He looked stunning. Dark blue suit, silver tie, perfectly styled hair. The kind of man who seemed to have been born in rooms like this. "You came," he said, looking genuinely happy. "You practically forced me. I politely invited you, with a golden envelope. That's practically a royal summons." James laughed. "Come on. I want to introduce you to some people." The next hour was a whirlwind of handshakes and forced smiles. James introduced her as one of the sharpest minds on the team, and Evelyn tried not to look like a complete fraud. "You're doing well," James whispered at some point. "I'm pretending very well, you mean?" "Sometimes it's the same thing." At 8 in the evening, James asked for everyone's attention. The chatter died down. The glasses paused in midair. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his voice projecting confidence. "Tonight marks the beginning of a new phase for Whitmore Capital. We are pleased to announce 3 new strategic partnerships that will expand our global reach." Evelyn watched from the corner of the hall, the champagne glass forgotten in her hand. "First, I'd like to introduce Robert Chen of Chen Technologies, our new partner in the artificial intelligence sector." Applause. An Asian man with gray hair waved to the audience. Next, Thomas Wright, specialist in European emerging markets. More applause. A British man with a pleasant smile took a theatrical bow. And finally, James paused dramatically, "I have the honor of introducing Marcus Webb, founder of Webb Venture Capital, our new strategic partner for Latin America." Evelyn froze. The champagne in the glass trembled. The entire world seemed to slow down as a man entered the hall. Brown hair shorter than she remembered. Neatly trimmed beard. A suit that probably cost more than the car she no longer had. But the eyes were the same. Those brown eyes that had sworn to love her forever. That had promised to build a future together. That had lied every day for 5 years of marriage. Marcus, the man who stole everything from her, who forged documents in her name, who disappeared 3 years ago leaving behind a trail of debts, lawsuits, and destruction. Marcus, who was now using a different last name and smiling at the audience as if he were a respectable businessman. Marcus, who was scanning the hall with his eyes until he stopped exactly on her. A second of recognition. Then, a smile. Small, calculated. The same smile he used to give when he was about to get something he wanted. Evelyn felt her legs weaken. The air became heavy. The hall began to spin. No, she murmured quietly. "Lady Calculator, please tell me this is a nightmare. Tell me I'm going to wake up in my tiny apartment with Noah jumping on my bed asking for pancakes." But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real. Terribly, impossibly real. "Evelyn?" James's voice appeared beside her. "Are you okay? You're pale." "I'm fine." She forced a smile that probably looked like a grimace. "Just the champagne. I shouldn't drink on an empty stomach. I always do this. Terrible habit. I should eat more. Carbohydrates, protein, maybe vegetables." "Vegetables are important." James frowned. "You're rambling." "That's what I do when I'm fine. I ramble. People who are fine ramble. It's scientific." He clearly didn't believe her, but before he could insist, he was called over by another executive. "Don't leave here," he said. "I'll be back in a minute." Evelyn nodded, already planning her escape route. Main door, too obvious. Service door, too far. Window, 30 stories high. Maybe not. "You could hide under the canapé table," she murmured to herself. "That's an option. Pathetic, but an option." Too late. Marcus was walking toward her, each step calculated, each movement precise, like a predator that had located its prey. "Evelyn Carter," he said, stopping less than a meter from her. "What a small world." "Marcus. Webb now. Marcus Webb. Carter brought me complicated memories." "I imagine so, considering you destroyed everything that had the Carter name." He laughed, a low, intimate laugh, as if they were sharing a private joke. "Always so dramatic. One of the things I loved most about you." "Don't use that word." "Which one? Loved? You don't know what it means." Marcus tilted his head, studying her as if she were a potential investment. "You're different. More polished. What happened to the woman I found crying on the kitchen floor? Evelyn felt her stomach turn. She learned to get up. How touching. He took another step, invading her personal space. And our son? How's little Noah? Don't say his name. He's my son too, Evelyn. You lost that right when you disappeared for 3 years. Technically, I was busy, reorganizing my life, but now I'm back, and apparently we're going to be co-workers. What a lovely coincidence. Evelyn looked around, searching for an exit, an excuse, anything. What do you want, Marcus? For now, just catching up. He extended his hand. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Carter, officially. For the curious eyes around us. She looked at the extended hand. She didn't want to touch him. She didn't want to pretend civility. But there were people watching. James was watching. Evelyn shook his hand. Marcus held on for a second longer than he should have. Then he leaned in and whispered, just for her to hear, "Did you miss me, dear?" Evelyn pulled her hand back as if she'd received an electric shock. Do you two know each other? James's voice cut through the moment. He was standing there, his eyes alternating between Evelyn and Marcus, his expression cautious. Silence. Marcus smiled, that smile. No, he said softly. We've never met before. Right, Evelyn? Evelyn looked at Marcus, looked at James, looked at the door. 3 years of rebuilding, 3 years of hiding, 3 years trying to forget. And now, in a single moment, everything threatened to collapse. Right, she heard her own voice say, distant and strange. We've never met before. James frowned. He didn't believe it. Evelyn knew he didn't believe it, but before he could say anything, Marcus gave James a friendly pat on the shoulder. You have an impressive team, Whitmore. I'm looking forward to working together. And he walked away, leaving Evelyn standing in the middle of the hall, her heart in pieces and a single certainty in her mind. The past hadn't just knocked on the door. It had walked in, sat on the couch, and ordered champagne. The Monday after the conference, Evelyn discovered that hell wasn't made of fire. It was made of business meetings, forced smiles, and a criminal ex-husband sitting on the other side of the glass table. Lady Calculator, she whispered in the women's restroom for the 3rd time that day, what's the statistical probability of a person surviving while pretending everything is fine when clearly nothing is fine? The calculator displayed error. I agree. Fatal error. That's exactly how I feel. Marcus didn't work at Whitmore Capital, thank heavens. He had his own company, Webb Venture Capital, on the other side of the city. But the new strategic partnership meant meetings, lots of meetings, weekly meetings, sometimes twice a week, where Evelyn was forced to sit in the same room as the man who had destroyed her life and pretend she had never seen him before. It was like being forced to have dinner with a shark and pretend he was a vegetarian. Evelyn, are you okay? Pat asked when she returned to her desk for the 4th time with red eyes. Allergies, Evelyn lied. Pollen, lots of dust, the air conditioning, maybe the coffee, or life. Probably life. Pat narrowed her eyes. You've been strange since that conference at the hotel. I've always been strange. You yourself said I seem like a Russian spy. Yes, but now you seem like a Russian spy in an existential crisis. Evelyn forced a smile. It's just stress. Too much work. Not enough sleep. Nothing a weekend won't fix. But the weekend didn't fix it. Because on Friday, when Evelyn got home after picking up Noah from Gloria's place, there was an envelope under the door. No return address, no stamp, just her name written in that handwriting she now recognized. Her hands trembled as she opened it. You're doing a great job pretending you don't know me. Keep it up. If you open your mouth about anything from the past, I will make sure you lose the only thing you still have, custody of Noah. I have lawyers, I have money, I have patience, and I have proof that you were negligent. Want to test it? Try to expose me and see what happens. Kisses, M. Evelyn read it 3 times. Then she put the letter in her purse with the others, because yes, that was the 3rd letter in 2 weeks, and went to make dinner for her son as if the world weren't falling apart. Mommy sad? Noah asked from his high chair while she was cutting onions. No, sweetheart, it's the onions. What? He pointed with his little finger. Evelyn looked at the knife. Indeed, they were carrots. Emotional carrots, she said, forcing a smile. Very sad. Poor things. Noah laughed that delicious laugh of a small child and went back to scribbling on paper with crayons. On Monday, Marcus showed up for another meeting. Perfect suit, predator's smile, the confidence of someone who knows he holds all the cards. James led the presentation about new markets in Latin America. Evelyn was in the room because James had insisted. He valued her opinion. If only he knew. "Any observations, Evelyn?" James asked at the end. She felt Marcus's gaze piercing her. "No," she said, her voice lower than normal. "The numbers look solid." James frowned. That wasn't the Evelyn he knew. The Evelyn he knew would have found at least 3 inconsistencies and pointed them all out with surgical precision. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Marcus smiled, a small, satisfied smile that only Evelyn saw. After the meeting, when everyone was leaving, Marcus approached her, pretending to get a glass of water. "I liked your discretion," he whispered. "Keep it up, and no one needs to know about your interesting past. The cleaning lady who became an analyst. What an inspiring story. It would be a shame if someone told the wrong person." Evelyn clenched her fists. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I already told you. Silence. And maybe eventually a little help with insider information. You're well positioned now, close to James. He trusts you. That could be useful." "I'm not going to spy for you. I'm not asking for espionage. I'm asking for cooperation. Between old friends. We're not friends. No, we're more than that," he leaned in. "We're family, remember? Till death do us part. Or in this case, until you decide to be smart." James appeared at the door. "Evelyn? Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," she forced a smile. "Mr. Webb was just congratulating me on my work." "That's right," Marcus extended his hand to James. "You have an exceptional team, Whitmore. Take good care of them." And he left. James watched Marcus leave, then turned his gaze to Evelyn. "Are you sure you're okay? Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because you don't seem okay. You're quieter, more distant, and every time Marcus Webb enters a room, you turn white as a sheet." Evelyn swallowed hard. "It's just your imagination." "Evelyn," James took a step toward her. "I know we haven't known each other very long, and I know you have your reasons for not trusting easily. But if something's wrong, anything, you can tell me." Her eyes stung. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to so badly. She wanted to say that his new partner was a criminal, that he had stolen everything from her, that he was threatening to take her son away, that she had been living in constant fear for 2 weeks. But if she told, Marcus would follow through on his threat. And Evelyn couldn't lose Noah. She couldn't. He was all she had. "Everything's fine," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Really." James didn't seem convinced, but he didn't push. "Okay, but the offer still stands. Whenever you're ready." He left. Evelyn stayed alone in the conference room, staring at the city through the glass window. "Lady Calculator," she whispered, pulling the calculator from her purse. "What do I do?" The calculator remained silent. "You're very helpful." Evelyn put the object away. "Thanks for the emotional support." That night, while putting Noah to bed, her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "I saw you talking to James after the meeting. Be careful what you say, and enjoy your son while you can." Evelyn felt the floor disappear. She looked at Noah, who was already asleep, hugging his plush dinosaur, his angelic face lit by the dim light of the bedside lamp. And for the first time in 3 years, Evelyn didn't know if she could protect him. Because Marcus wasn't just threatening. He was hunting. The office was empty at 8 at night. Lights off, computers in sleep mode, empty chairs. Evelyn was the only person on the entire floor. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Because people don't cry in front of other people. People cry hidden away, hugging a calculator in a corner of the conference room where no one can see. "Lady Calculator," she sobbed, holding the object against her chest. "I can't take it anymore. I can't do it. He's suffocating me. Every day is worse than the one before. And I can't tell anyone because if I do, he'll take Noah away from me." The calculator displayed zeros. Evelyn decided that was numerical solidarity. In her free hand, she held the 4th letter. This one had arrived at the office. Marcus was getting bolder. "You're taking too long to understand the rules of the game. Let me simplify. Do what I say or lose everything. Again, and this time, it will be permanent. I have photos of you going in and out of the cleaning company building. I have records. I have everything I need to prove you're an unstable mother who hides her past and lies on her resume. Family courts love this kind of information. Kisses, M." Evelyn read the words for the 10th time. Each letter was a knife. Each sentence was a punch. She didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. She didn't hear the door open. She only realized she wasn't alone when a voice said softly, "Evelyn?" She lifted her head so fast she almost dropped the calculator. James was standing at the door, briefcase in hand, his expression transforming from surprise to concern in half a second. "What?" He took a step toward her. "What happened?" Evelyn wiped the tears frantically. "Nothing, nothing. I was just—" She looked at the calculator in her hand. "Doing calculations. Very sad calculations. Emotional math. It's a new thing, very popular among lonely financial analysts." James didn't laugh. He walked over to her and sat in the chair beside her. "Evelyn, seriously, everything's fine. I just had a hard day. Hard week. Hard month. Hard life, if we're being honest. But who doesn't, right? It's the human condition. Universal suffering. Buddha already talked about this." "Evelyn, and I was reading about Stoicism the other day. Marcus Aurelius. Very interesting. He said we can't control what happens, only how we react. So I'm reacting, with tears, which is a valid reaction, hydrating even. Good for the skin." "Evelyn." James placed his hand gently over hers. "Stop." She stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, dense, full of things unsaid. "What is this?" James indicated the crumpled letter in her hand. Evelyn looked at the paper, then at James, then at the calculator, as if expecting the object to give her an answer. "It's correspondence. Personal. Nothing important. Personal correspondence that makes you cry alone at 8 at night in an empty office. I'm very sensitive. Anything makes me emotional. Dog commercials, movie endings, letters from—" Her voice broke. She couldn't finish. James waited. He didn't pressure. He didn't demand. He just waited, his hands still over hers, his eyes patient. And that's what broke Evelyn. It wasn't the pressure, it was the kindness. "I don't know where to start," she said, her voice so low it almost disappeared. "From the beginning, or the middle, or wherever you want. I'm not going anywhere." Evelyn took a deep breath. Once, twice, 3 times. "Marcus Webb," she said finally. "That's not his real name." James frowned. "What do you mean?" "His name is Marcus Carter. It was Marcus Carter. He was." Evelyn felt her throat tighten. "He was my husband." The silence that followed was deafening. "Your husband," James repeated slowly. "Ex-husband. 3 years ago. 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days to be exact. Not that I'm counting." She let out a bitter laugh. "I met Marcus when I was 24. He was charming. You know that type of person who walks into a room and everyone looks, who speaks and everyone listens? He was like that. Brilliant, charismatic, and completely interested in me, which at the time seemed like a miracle." "Evelyn, let me finish, please. If I stop, I don't know if I'll be able to continue." James nodded. Evelyn took a deep breath and continued. "We got married after a year of dating. I had just graduated in finance, had big dreams, and he said we could build something together. And we did. A financial consulting firm. Carter and Associates. It was small, but it was ours. I handled the technical side, he handled the clients. It seemed perfect." She paused, her eyes lost somewhere in the past. "We were married 5 years. 5 years where I thought I had the dream life. A husband who loved me, a growing company, plans to have children. And then on a normal Tuesday, I found out I was pregnant with Noah." "Noah is his son?" James asked softly. "Biologically, yes. In every other sense, no. Because 2 weeks after I found out about the pregnancy, I also discovered that the company accounts were empty. All of them. $243,000. Gone." James's eyes widened. "And that wasn't all," Evelyn continued, her voice trembling. "I found out Marcus had taken out loans in the company's name. Loans I never authorized. Documents with my signature that I never signed. Contracts I never saw. He had forged everything, every paper, every record. And when the creditors came to collect, guess whose name was on all the documents? Yours? Mine, the pregnant wife who had no idea about anything." Evelyn wiped a tear that had fallen. "I confronted him that night. Showed him the statements, the documents, the proof. You know what he said?" James shook his head. "He said, 'You were never smart enough to notice, were you?' And he laughed. He laughed in my face, like I was a joke, like 5 years of marriage were one big comedy and I was the only one who didn't know." "Evelyn?" "He left that night, grabbed a suitcase, got in the car and disappeared. Just vanished. And left me with the debts, the lawsuits, and a baby in my belly. The creditors didn't care if I was innocent. The lawyers cost more than I had. My family," her voice failed. My family thought I was lying, that I knew that I had participated. My own mother said I should have noticed the signs. James remained silent, but his eyes shone with something that looked like contained anger. I lost everything, she continued. The company, the apartment, the savings, the friends who disappeared when the money disappeared. I was 6 months pregnant, alone, with nothing. I had to sell everything I had to pay the lawyers, and it still wasn't enough. When Noah was born, I was living in a one-bedroom apartment in the worst neighborhood in Chicago, working as a cashier at a fast food place during the day and doing odd jobs at night. How did I become a cleaning lady? Evelyn completed. One of my neighbors worked at a cleaning company. She said the night shift paid better, and I could leave Noah sleeping at her place while I worked. So I accepted, because mothers do what they need to do. She looked at her own hands. I cleaned offices for 2 years. 2 years scrubbing floors, cleaning bathrooms, emptying trash cans of people who didn't even look at me. And you know what's funny? I wasn't ashamed of the work. Honest work is honest work. What destroyed me was knowing I could do more. That I was capable of more. That I had knowledge, skill, experience, and all of it was being wasted because a man decided I was disposable. James finally spoke. And the night of the meeting? Evelyn let out a sad laugh. The night of the meeting was the biggest accident of my life. I walked into the wrong room, literally. The door was unlocked. I thought it was an empty office, and suddenly I was in the middle of an investment presentation. And those numbers were so wrong I couldn't stay quiet. 3 years of silence, and my mouth chose that exact moment to work. And the arrogant CEO? Richard? Evelyn rolled her eyes. He tried to humiliate me, made me repeat everything in front of everyone, thinking I would stammer and look foolish. But I didn't stammer. I pointed out every error, every inflated number, every absurd projection, and he was furious. He fired me in front of everyone. You weren't fired. You quit. Evelyn looked at James, surprised. You remember? I was there, in the corner of the room, watching everything. I know. You gave me your card in the elevator. She shook her head. I thought it was a prank. I spent the whole night staring at that card, expecting it to disappear. To be a lie. Because good things don't happen to me. Not anymore. And now? James asked. The letters? Evelyn felt the weight return to her shoulders. Marcus showed up at the conference. You saw. You introduced me to him. And she swallowed hard. He's blackmailing me. He wants me to stay quiet about the crimes he committed. If I open my mouth, he said he'll fight for custody of Noah, that he'll use my past against me, that he'll prove I'm unstable, that I lied on my resume, that I'm not a good mother. That's extortion. I know, but he has lawyers, has money, has power. And I have. She looked at the calculator in her hand. I have a calculator and a retired mop. The silence that followed was long. Evelyn waited for the judgment, the distrust. The why didn't you tell me before? But James only said, look at me. She raised her eyes. You think I'm going to judge you? He asked. You think after everything you've been through, after everything you've built, after everything you've shown yourself to be, I'm going to judge you for being the victim of a criminal? Evelyn blinked. I lied about who I was. You didn't lie. You protected yourself. There's a difference. I hid that I was a cleaning lady. So what? James leaned in. Evelyn, you were cleaning floors at night and still knew more about investments than an entire room of executives. That doesn't diminish you. That makes you extraordinary. James held her hands between his. Evelyn, his word means nothing. Yours means everything. You've shown me who you are since day one. With courage, with truth, with dignity. That's priceless. She felt the tears returning, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of despair. James raised his hand and wiped a tear that was running down her face. The touch was soft, careful, as if she were something precious. I've spent weeks trying to understand, he said quietly, why I can't get you out of my head. Why every time you walk into a room, I forget what I was going to say. Why the sound of your laugh got recorded in my memory. Evelyn held her breath. James? And now I know, he continued, his eyes fixed on hers. I know because you're the most extraordinary person I've ever met. And I would be a complete fool if I let you keep thinking you're alone. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back, giving her space to say no. Evelyn didn't pull back. When his lips touched hers, the entire world seemed to stop. It was a soft kiss at first, almost a question, then deeper, more intense, loaded with everything they had both kept inside for weeks. Evelyn felt her heart explode inside her chest. She had forgotten what this was like, being touched with affection, being desired with respect, being truly seen. When they separated, they were both breathless. "Wow," Evelyn whispered. "Lady Calculator didn't prepare me for this." James laughed, his forehead resting against hers. "She knew it was going to happen? She's very discreet, keeps secrets very well." He laughed again, then became serious, his eyes shining with determination. "Evelyn, I'm going to fix this, I promise. Marcus is never going to touch you or Noah again." She believed him. For the first time in 3 years, she believed someone was on her side. James let go of her hands and picked up the phone. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Calling the best lawyers in Chicago," he said, dialing a number. "Marcus Webb, or whatever his real name is going to find out what happens when you mess with the wrong person." The phone started ringing on the other end. And Evelyn, with her lips still tingling from the kiss, felt something she had forgotten how it felt. Hope. The law firm Harrison and Associates occupied the top floor of a building in downtown Chicago and had more dark wood and genuine leather than Evelyn had seen in her entire life. It was the kind of place where people spoke in low voices, as if they were in a very sophisticated library. "Lady Calculator," Evelyn whispered to her purse while waiting in the reception area. "I don't think I belong in this place. These chairs probably cost my apartment rent for a year." James put his hand on her shoulder. "You belong anywhere you want to be." That was very inspirational. You should write fortunes for fortune cookies. Before James could respond, a woman with gray hair and an impeccable suit appeared at the door. "Mr. Whitmore, Mrs. Carter, I'm Victoria Harrison. Please follow me." Victoria Harrison was the kind of lawyer who made other lawyers tremble. She had eagle eyes, the posture of a general, and a reputation for never having lost a corporate fraud case in 23 years of her career. The conference room was filled with folders, documents, and 3 younger lawyers typing frantically on laptops. "Sit down," Victoria indicated the chairs. "We have a lot to discuss." Evelyn sat down, feeling like a student in the principal's office. James sat beside her, his presence strangely comforting. "So," Victoria opened a thick folder, "Marcus Webb, or should I say Marcus Carter, or perhaps Michael Warren, or Matthew Collins." Evelyn blinked. "What do you mean?" "Your ex-husband, Mrs. Carter, is a man of many names. In the last 10 years, he's used at least 7 different identities in 5 states. 7? Evelyn felt her stomach sink. 7 that we've found so far, one of the younger lawyers said without taking his eyes off the laptop. Every hour another one appears. "This guy is a Swiss cheese of crimes," another lawyer murmured. "Every time we look, there's another hole." Victoria shot a look of disapproval at the young man, who immediately went back to typing. "What we've discovered so far," Victoria continued, "is that Mr. Webb, or whatever his real name is, has a pattern. He finds entrepreneurial women, usually alone, intelligent, with promising businesses. He charms them, marries them, and slowly transfers all their assets to his name. When he has everything he wants, he disappears and starts over in another state with another identity." Evelyn felt the room spin. "I wasn't the first? You were the 4th, that we know of." 4th. She had been the 4th woman to fall for Marcus's scheme. The 4th to lose everything. The 4th to be left behind with debts and destruction. "The others?" she asked in a weak voice. "Are they okay?" Victoria sighed. "One of them went completely bankrupt. Another lost her house and custody of her children. The 3rd had to start from scratch, just like you." Evelyn felt James squeeze her hand under the table. "The good news," Victoria continued, "is that we now have enough evidence to bury Mr. Webb in lawsuits for the next 50 years. Wire fraud, document forgery, identity theft, money laundering, and thanks to the letters you kept, extortion." "You kept the letters?" James asked. "All of them," Evelyn said. "I don't know why. Maybe because Lady Calculator said they might be useful someday." The lawyers exchanged confused looks. "Lady Calculator is a person?" the youngest lawyer asked. "It's a calculator," Evelyn explained. "Very wise. Gives great advice." Victoria cleared her throat. "Right. Anyway, we need you to review some documents. These are records from your marriage, the company, the transactions Marcus made in your name. Evelyn spent the next 2 hours reviewing papers. Each document was a stab. Each forged signature was a reminder of how she had been deceived. This loan contract, she pointed with a trembling hand, I've never seen this in my life. The signature looks like mine, but it's not. I would never sign a loan with 22% interest. That's financial insanity. He studied your handwriting for months, Victoria said. We found records of online forgery courses he took. The man is methodical. Methodical, Evelyn repeated bitterly. I would call it something else, but I'm trying to keep my vocabulary polite. And his company? James asked. Webb Venture Capital? Victoria smiled for the first time, a shark's smile. That's the interesting part. The company grew exponentially in the last 3 years. Know what initial capital? The money he stole from me, Evelyn said, her voice hollow. Exactly. And from the other victims. He put it all together, invested well, and now Webb Venture Capital is worth approximately $12 million. Evelyn felt the air leave her lungs. 12 million? 12 million that legally belonged to his victims, including you. James leaned forward. Victoria, what's the next step? Arrest. We've already contacted the federal authorities. They're preparing the warrant as we speak. And how do we make sure he doesn't run? Evelyn asked. Marcus is slippery. He disappeared once. He can disappear again. Victoria and James exchanged a look that Evelyn couldn't decipher. About that, James said, I have an idea. The next day, Evelyn was at her desk at Whitmore Capital, trying to focus on a report, when she felt someone stop behind her. Evelyn? Marcus's voice was soft as silk and sharp as a razor. She turned slowly. He was standing there, impeccable suit, predator smile, as if nothing in the world could touch him. Marcus, we need to talk, in private. We have nothing to talk about. Oh, I think we do, he leaned in, lowering his voice. Little Birds told me you've been talking to lawyers. That makes me very sad, Evelyn. I thought we had an agreement. Agreements made under threat aren't agreements. They're extortion. What a strong word, Marcus smiled. I prefer to call it creative negotiation. Call it whatever you want. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. He moved closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. I destroyed your life once. I can do it again, and this time I'll make sure you don't get up. I'll take Noah from you. I'll prove you're unstable, a liar, incapable. And when I'm done, you'll have nothing. No son, no job, no dignity. Evelyn felt the old fear rising up her spine, the same fear that paralyzed her for 3 years, the same fear that made her hide, diminish herself, stay silent. But this time, something was different, since she wasn't alone. You know, Marcus, she said, her voice surprisingly steady, you've always been good at making threats, but terrible at keeping promises. Is that a provocation? No, it's an observation. Marcus narrowed his eyes. You're different, braver, or more foolish. I haven't decided yet. I'm also undecided about you, a voice said behind Marcus. Professional criminal or very lucky amateur? Marcus turned. James was standing 3 meters away, but he wasn't alone. 2 police officers in uniform stood beside him, and behind them, a woman in a suit that Evelyn recognized as an FBI agent. James, Marcus forced a smile, but the color was already draining from his face. What a surprise. Not a surprise at all, James said calmly. Actually, I knew you would come. It was just a matter of when. What are you talking about? I'm talking about you not being able to resist the temptation to intimidate Evelyn one last time. You're predictable, Marcus. You always have been. That's why we prepared an appropriate reception. The FBI agent stepped forward. Marcus Webb, also known as Marcus Carter, Michael Warren, Matthew Collins, and at least 4 other identities, you are under arrest for wire fraud, document forgery, identity theft, money laundering, and extortion. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. Marcus looked around, searching for an exit, but there was none. This is a mistake, he said, his voice losing its confidence. I have lawyers. I have rights. You can't just... Yes, we can, the agent said, putting the handcuffs on him. And we are. The entire floor had stopped to watch. Pat was standing by her desk, mouth agape. Derek from finance was holding a forgotten cup of coffee in the air. Marcus was led toward the elevator, the handcuffs gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Before entering, he looked back. At Evelyn. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Evelyn responded. You just haven't realized it yet. The elevator doors closed, and Marcus Webb disappeared. The trial took place 6 weeks later at the Federal Court of the Northern District of Illinois. Evelyn had never seen a courtroom so full. Journalists, lawyers, curious onlookers, and in the front row, 3 women she had never met, but who shared the same story. Marcus's other victims. Rebecca, from Ohio, had lost a bakery that had been in her family for 3 generations. Linda, from Texas, had lost her home and almost lost custody of her children. Sarah, from California, had lost a lifetime of savings. All of them were there, all ready to testify. Evelyn was the first to take the stand. "Mrs. Carter," the prosecutor said, "can you tell us about your relationship with the defendant?" Evelyn looked at Marcus, sitting at the defense table. He was different, smaller. His suit didn't look so impeccable anymore. The predator's smile had disappeared. "Marcus Carter was my husband for 5 years," she began. "During that time, he systematically stole my company, forged documents in my name, and left me with debts that almost destroyed my life. When I discovered the truth, he disappeared, and I was left behind, pregnant, alone, with nothing. And what happened after? I survived," Evelyn said simply. "I worked as a cleaning lady for 2 years to support my son. I cleaned offices in the middle of the night while he slept at the neighbor's house. And I rebuilt my life from scratch." The prosecutor nodded. "And when the defendant reappeared, he tried to silence me. He sent letters threatening to take my son if I spoke about his crimes. He wanted me to stay quiet so he could keep destroying other lives." Evelyn looked at Rebecca, Linda, and Sarah. "But I didn't stay quiet, because I'm not the only victim, and none of us deserved what happened." The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of testimony, 3 days of evidence, 3 days of Marcus trying to defend himself with increasingly desperate lies. In the end, the jury took only 2 hours to reach the verdict. On the charges of wire fraud, how does the jury find? Guilty. On the charges of document forgery? Guilty. On the charges of identity theft? Guilty. On the charges of money laundering? Guilty. On the charges of extortion? Guilty. Marcus was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 15 years. But the real justice came afterward. All of Marcus's assets were seized. Webb Venture Capital, valued at $12 million, was liquidated. The money was divided among the victims, proportional to what each had lost. For Evelyn, that meant $3 million. $3 million she never expected to see again. "What are you going to do with the money?" James asked that night, sitting on the couch of her apartment while Noah slept in his room. Evelyn thought for a moment. Webb Venture Capital still has structure. Office, clients, contracts. If I bought the company's assets instead of liquidating everything, I could rebuild, make something good from something that was born from so much bad. James smiled. "That sounds a lot like you." "It does? Turning tragedy into opportunity." "Yes, very you." Evelyn laughed. "Lady Calculator is going to be proud." A month later, Evelyn Carter took over as CEO of the company her ex-husband had built with the money he stole from her. The first thing she did was change the name. Carter and Associates, the same name he had destroyed, but this time it was truly hers. On the desk in her new office, next to the computer and the client folders, was Lady Calculator, and in the closet at home, kept as a memento, Mr. Mop, symbols of who she had been and of who she had become. 6 months had passed since Marcus was arrested, 6 months since Evelyn took over the company, 6 months of a life she still couldn't believe was real. Evelyn woke up with the sun coming through the window and, for a moment, didn't know where she was. The ceiling was different. The bed was bigger. The mattress didn't have that spring that used to poke her back at 3 in the morning. Then she remembered. New apartment. Good neighborhood. 2 bedrooms. Working heating. This was her life now. "Mommy," Noah's voice echoed through the hallway, followed by the sound of little feet running. "Mommy, wake up! Rex wants pancakes!" Noah appeared at the door, the plush dinosaur under his arm, his brown hair sticking up in every possible direction. Almost 4 years old and more mischievous every day. "Rex wants pancakes?" Evelyn sat up in bed, smiling. "And what does Noah want?" "Pancakes too, and juice, and strawberries." He still mixed up some of his letters. "And chocolate? Chocolate in the morning?" "Rex said it's okay." Noah hugged the dinosaur as proof. "Ah, Rex said so. Well, I'm going to have to talk to Rex about that." Noah looked worried. Don't yell at him, Mommy. He's sensitive. Evelyn laughed that laugh that only Noah could draw out of her and opened her arms. Come here, sweetheart. Noah ran and threw himself on the bed, the dinosaur flying to the side. Evelyn hugged him tight, breathing in the smell of children's shampoo and mischief. I love you, you know that? She whispered. I love you too, Mommy, and Rex does too, but he loves pancakes more. Fair enough, pancakes are really good. Evelyn stayed there for another moment, absorbing the peace. Not the silence of the old apartment, which was loaded with worry. This was a different silence. Light. Calm. On the dresser beside the bed, Lady Calculator occupied the place of honor. We've moved up in the world, Lady Calculator, Evelyn whispered while Noah ran to the kitchen. Who would have thought, right? The calculator remained silent, but Evelyn was sure it was proud. The new apartment had things Evelyn never imagined having again. A stove with all the burners working, a refrigerator that didn't sound like an airplane engine, a bathroom with decent water pressure, and, most importantly, a room just for Noah. His room had light blue walls, a bed shaped like a car, and shelves full of dinosaurs of all sizes. It was the room Evelyn had always wanted to give him. The room he deserved. Good morning, Mrs. Carter. Evelyn turned and saw Melissa, the babysitter, coming through the door with a radiant smile. Melissa was 24 years old, studying education, and had an energy that made Evelyn feel old. Melissa, I've already told you not to call me ma'am. It makes me feel like I'm 60 years old. Sorry, Ma. Evelyn, it's habit. My grandmother raised me with those formalities. If I called someone by their first name, she would make me say 3 Hail Marys. Your grandmother sounds intense. She once chased away a door-to-door salesman using only a look and a wooden spoon. The woman is a legend. Noah appeared in the kitchen, dragging Melissa by the arm. Lissa, pancakes. Rex wants pancakes. Rex does, huh? Melissa crouched down to his level. What if we made dinosaur-shaped pancakes? Noah's eyes widened as if Melissa had offered him the moon. Dinosaur you can eat. Dinosaur you can eat. You're the best person in the whole wide world. Melissa laughed and carried Noah to the kitchen, leaving Evelyn alone with a silly smile on her face. Having help was strange. Good, but strange. For 3 years, Evelyn had done everything alone. Wake up, work, take care of Noah, sleep, repeat. The idea of having someone to share the tasks with still seemed like an absurd luxury. But she deserved this luxury. She had earned this luxury. Through a lot of hard work, a lot of pain, and an absurd amount of conversations with inanimate objects. An hour later, Evelyn was at the Carter & Associates office, sitting in the CEO chair, trying not to look like an imposter. Good morning, Mrs. Carter, the receptionist said as she passed. Good morning, Evelyn responded, resisting the urge to look behind her to see if Mrs. Carter was someone else. The office was modern and elegant. 20 employees, 3 floors, a conference room with a view of the lake, all built with stolen money, but now transformed into something legitimate. On Evelyn's desk, next to the computer and the phone, Lady Calculator occupied the place of honor. Look where you ended up, Evelyn whispered to the calculator. From a cleaning lady's desk to a CEO's desk. Who would have thought we'd be promoted together? The door opened and Pat walked in, carrying a stack of folders. Evelyn, I mean boss. I mean Mrs. CEO. I mean, Pat, for the love of all that is sacred, just call me Evelyn. Sorry, it's just that I still haven't gotten used to you being my boss. 6 months ago, we were having lunch together and you were complaining about Derek from finance. Now you sign my paycheck. Technically, HR signs your paycheck. Technically, you pay the HR that signs my paycheck. It's the same thing, just with more steps. Evelyn laughed. Having Pat there was one of the best decisions she had made. When she took over the company, her first call was to her red-headed friend with the huge glasses. How much do you make at Whitmore? Evelyn had asked. Why? Because I'm going to offer you 20% more to come work with me. Sold, Pat had responded without hesitation. When do I start? Now, 6 months later, Pat was her right hand, her confidant, and the only person authorized to interrupt meetings to bring coffee. The quarterly reports, Pat placed the folders on the desk. And there's a call from James on line 2. He said it's personal, but I pretended I didn't hear that part. Evelyn felt her face warm. Thank you, Pat. You're welcome, boss. I mean, Evelyn. Oh, you know what I mean. Pat left and Evelyn answered the phone. Hi. Hi. James's voice was warm, even through the phone line. How is the most beautiful CEO in Chicago? Exhausted, confused, and with a pile of reports on my desk. So you're doing great. Evelyn laughed. What's up? I wanted to confirm dinner tonight. 7 o'clock at your apartment. I'm bringing Thai food. You know Noah's only going to want to eat the white rice, right? I know. I'm also bringing chicken nuggets hidden in my backpack. Survival strategy. Evelyn felt her heart melt. James and Noah had become unlikely friends in recent months. At first, Noah had been suspicious. He asked direct questions, tested limits, watched James's every move like a little almost 4-year-old detective. Do you like mommy? Can you do a dinosaur impression? Why doesn't your hair get messy like mine? Can you carry me on your shoulders? James had answered all of them patiently. Yes, he liked mommy very much. Yes, he could do a reasonable Tyrannosaurus, because he used product in his hair. And yes, he could carry Noah on his shoulders as many times as he wanted. Now Noah ran to hug James every time he showed up. He called him Uncle James and insisted he participate in dinosaur games. Approval granted by a court of almost 4 years old with a plush jury. At 7 in the evening, James arrived with bags of Thai food and a package of nuggets hidden in his jacket. Lissa left 10 minutes ago, Evelyn said, opening the door. Noah's watching cartoons. Perfect. Time to prepare Operation Nugget. Uncle James. Noah appeared running and threw himself at James's legs. You came. I did, champ. James messed up his hair. And I brought a surprise. Nuggets? Noah's eyes sparkled. James looked at Evelyn with fake indignation. How does he always know? It's a gift, Evelyn shrugged. Inexplicable. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Noah spilled juice on the table twice. James tried to teach the boy to use chopsticks, which resulted in rice scattered within a 2-meter radius. Evelyn laughed so hard she almost choked on her pad thigh. It was normal. It was messy. It was family. After Noah fell asleep, hugging Rex as always, Evelyn and James sat on the couch, watching the city through the window. He likes you, Evelyn said quietly. I like him too. He's funny. Today he asked me if I could be his dinosaur forever. Evelyn laughed. And what did you say? I said yes, that I'm the official Tyrannosaurus of the family. Family, huh? Evelyn smiled. Yeah, James looked at her. If you want. Comfortable silence. Evelyn, James turned to her. There's something I wanted to ask you. Her heart sped up. What? On Saturday, I want to take you to a special place, just the two of us. What place? Surprise, he smiled. But I need you to trust me. I trust you, she said, realizing it was true. James said goodbye with a kiss that lasted longer than it should have and less than Evelyn wanted. After he left, she walked to the hallway closet and opened the door. In the back, propped up in the corner, was Mr. Mop. Evelyn took him out of the closet and held him for a moment. Hi, old friend, she whispered. It's been a while since we talked. The Mop remained silent, as always. I made it, she continued, her eyes welling up. We made it. Look where we are now. New apartment. Own company, a good man who likes me, and Noah. She caressed the worn handle. Thank you for listening to me all those nights, for being my friend when I had no one left. You were the best therapist I've ever had, and the cheapest. Evelyn put the mop back in the closet, carefully. Now rest. You deserve it. She closed the door and wiped a tear that insisted on falling. In the living room, Lady Calculator waited on the coffee table. And you, Evelyn said to the calculator, get your best dress ready. Saturday, there's a surprise. The calculator displayed 8 zeros. Evelyn smiled. James's mysterious Saturday was still 3 days away, but the universe decided Evelyn couldn't wait to have strong emotions. Pat walked into her office with an expression that mixed shock and pure amusement. You're not going to believe who wants to schedule an urgent meeting. Evelyn looked up from the report. Surprise me. Richard Ashford, from Ashford Investments. The name hit Evelyn like lightning. Richard Ashford, the arrogant CEO who humiliated her, who fired her in front of everyone, who turned the worst night of her life into a public spectacle. What does he want? A partnership. Apparently his company is sinking. Pat smiled. Remember that investment you said was a disaster? The one with the inflated valuation and manipulated cash flow? I remember. It went wrong, spectacularly wrong. He lost 40% of his portfolio in 6 months. Evelyn looked at Lady Calculator on the desk. Karma, she whispered to the calculator. That's called karma. So? Pat asked. Accept the meeting? Or should I tell him to find another sucker? Evelyn thought for a moment. Accept it. Tomorrow at 10. Seriously, I wouldn't miss this for anything. The next day, Evelyn was sitting at the head of the conference table when the door opened. Richard Ashford walked in as if he still owned the world. Impeccable suit, perfectly styled hair, the same air of superiority that Evelyn remembered so well. He looked around, clearly searching for someone. "Good morning," he said to Evelyn with an automatic smile. "Could you call the CEO? I have a meeting scheduled." Pat, sitting in the corner, choked on her coffee. Evelyn smiled. "I am the CEO." Richard blinked, frowned, looked at her more closely, and then it clicked. The color drained from his face like water going down a drain. "You? Evelyn Carter," she extended her hand. "But maybe you remember me by another name, the cleaning lady who talked too much." Richard didn't shake her hand. He just stood there, mouth slightly open, looking like a fish out of water. "This is..." he stammered. How did I become the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company?" Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "It's a long story. It involves a mop, a calculator, and some bad decisions by an ex-husband. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about your problem." Richard swallowed hard and sat down. The arrogance had evaporated. In its place was something Evelyn recognized very well: desperation. "Ashford Investments is going through a restructuring," he said, trying to maintain his composure. "We need a strategic partner." "Restructuring," Evelyn repeated. "Is that what we're calling financial collapse now?" Pat coughed to disguise a laugh. "The reports I analyzed show that you lost 3 of your biggest clients," Evelyn continued. "The technology investment I criticized that night drained $80 million from the portfolio, and the current cash flow doesn't cover operations for the next 2 quarters. Richard turned pale. "How do you know this?" "Because I know how to read numbers, Mr. Ashford. I always did. You just didn't want to listen." Silence. Richard lowered his eyes. "What do you want?" "Favorable terms. 30% stake in the new structure. Control over all investment decisions above $5 million. And a veto clause on any operation I consider too risky." "That's absurd. That's practically an acquisition." "No. An acquisition would be me buying your entire company for pennies, which, by the way, is an option." Richard stared at her for a long moment. The man who once looked at her as if she were invisible now depended on her to survive. "Fine," he said finally, his voice defeated. "I accept the terms." Evelyn pushed the contract across the table. "Great, you can sign on the last page." Richard picked up the pen. Before he signed, Evelyn raised her hand. "Just out of curiosity, Mr. Ashford, do you remember what you said to me that night, when you fired me in front of everyone?" He didn't respond. "You said that people like me don't know our place." Evelyn smiled. "Now I know. My place is here, in this chair, deciding whether companies like yours survive or not." Richard signed the contract in silence. "A pleasure doing business," Evelyn said. "My assistant will show you to the exit." Pat stood up, beaming. "This way, Mr. Ashford." When the door closed, Evelyn was alone in the office. She looked at Lady Calculator. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." The calculator displayed the number 1. First place. Finally. The phone rang. It was James. "How did the meeting go?" "Better than any dream," Evelyn said, smiling. "Good. Because Saturday is going to be even better. I have a surprise for you. The biggest of my life." Evelyn felt her heart speed up. What kind of surprise? The kind that changes everything. She hung up the phone, still smiling. Whatever it was, she was ready. Saturday arrived with a golden sun that seemed to have been specially ordered for the occasion. Evelyn spent the entire morning trying to decide what to wear, which resulted in a pile of clothes on the bed and an existential fashion crisis. "Lady Calculator," she said to the object on the dresser, "blue dress or green dress?" The calculator displayed the number 2. 2? What does 2 mean? Second dress? Second option? 2 dresses at the same time? The calculator remained silent. "You're a terrible fashion advisor." Evelyn chose the blue dress. It matched her eyes and, more importantly, didn't have apple juice stains, courtesy of Noah. James arrived at 5 in the afternoon, punctual as always, with a bouquet of flowers and a smile that made Evelyn's stomach do somersaults. "You look beautiful," he said. "You look nervous," she replied, noticing how he kept adjusting his tie repeatedly. "Me? Nervous? Never. Billionaire executives don't get nervous. You've adjusted your tie 4 times since you arrived. 5, actually. But who's counting? Noah appeared running, Rex under his arm as always. Uncle James, where are you going? Secret place, champ. Can I come? Not today, but tomorrow I'll come pick you up for ice cream. Deal? Noah considered the proposal with the seriousness of a judge evaluating evidence. Chocolate ice cream? With extra topping. Deal. Melissa appeared to take over babysitting duty, and Evelyn said goodbye to Noah with a kiss on the forehead and the promise to return before he fell asleep. James's car crossed the city heading north, passing through neighborhoods Evelyn didn't know. She tried to guess the destination, but James remained mysterious, answering each question with an enigmatic smile. Is it a restaurant? Not exactly. A theater? No. A bowling alley? James raised an eyebrow. Bowling alley? Seriously? That's the level of your expectations? Hey, don't judge. Bowling can be very romantic. Matching shoes, heavy balls, deafening sound of pins falling, pure romance. James laughed. It's not bowling, I promise. 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a park on the shores of Lake Michigan. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink. A park? Evelyn asked, curious. Not just any park. James got out of the car and opened the door for her. Come on. They walked along a tree-lined trail until they reached a clearing, and Evelyn stopped, breathless. In the center of the clearing was an elegant table for 2, covered with a white tablecloth, lit candles, and a flower arrangement. A violinist played softly in the distance. The lake shimmered in the background like a golden mirror. James, she whispered. What is this? This, he held her hand, is the place where I want to ask the most important question of my life. Evelyn's heart raced. Question? James guided her to the table, but didn't sit. Instead, he stood before her, holding both her hands in his. Evelyn Carter, he began, his voice slightly trembling for the first time since she'd known him. I remember the first time I saw you. You were holding a mop, facing a room full of executives, and saying truths that no one had the courage to say. In that moment, I knew you were different. Evelyn felt her eyes stim. James, let me finish, please. If I stop, I'll lose my courage. She nodded, tears already escaping. You taught me what true strength is, he continued. Not the strength of those who have power or money. The strength of someone who gets up every day, even when everything seems impossible. The strength of someone who cleans floors in the middle of the night to give her son a better life. The strength of someone who faces the past head-on and refuses to be defined by it. James let go of her hands and pulled a small box from his pocket. I don't just want to date you, Evelyn. I want to wake up beside you every day. I want to make dinosaur pancakes with Noah on Sunday mornings. I want to be the official family Tyrannosaurus forever. He opened the box. A delicate ring sparkled under the golden light of the sunset. Evelyn Carter, will you marry me? Silence. The violinist stopped playing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn looked at the ring, then at James, then at the ring again. You, she began, her voice choked. Are you sure? I come with baggage, a lot of baggage. An almost 4-year-old son who thinks dinosaurs are better than people. A complicated past. A calculator I treat like a therapist. A retired mop that lives in my closet. James laughed, his eyes shining. I want all the baggage. Noah, the calculator, the mop, everything. Even the mop. Especially the mop. He was your friend when you needed it most. That deserves respect. Evelyn let out a laugh wet with tears. You're ridiculous. Is that a yes? She looked at him. At the man who saw her when she was invisible, who believed in her when no one else did, who loved her not despite who she was, but because of who she was. Yes, she said. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. James slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a kiss. The violinist began playing again. The sun finished setting, leaving the sky painted with stars. When they separated, Evelyn rested her forehead against his. Lady Calculator is going to freak out when she finds out. And Mr. Mop? He'll be proud. Deep down, he was always a romantic. James laughed and hugged her tight. Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling his warmth, hearing the beats of his heart. She had cleaned many floors, had faced many storms, had been knocked down, humiliated, forgotten, but never, not for a single moment, had she been small. The world just needed time to realize it. And now, in the arms of the man who loved her, Evelyn finally understood. She was never invisible. She was just waiting for someone with eyes to see. Evelyn taught us that honest work is never a reason for shame. That knowledge doesn't disappear just because circumstances change, and that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't revenge, it's success. If someone has ever made you feel small, remember this story. Your worth doesn't depend on who recognizes you. It depends on who you choose to be. The end. Now tell me, have you ever been in a situation where someone completely underestimated you? Where they looked at you as if you were invisible? Write in the comments what happened. And if you're still waiting for your comeback, comment, "My time will come," and I'll read every single one. On a scale of 0 to 10, what rating would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more touching stories like this one. See you next time.